Hello and welcome back. We're going to pick up where we left off in the last lesson. We were discussing React component state, and we said that this is data associated with a component, which generally affects the appearance of the component. And as a result, whenever that data changes, we need to redisplay the component. And we had a go at a DIY solution for this. We created this counter variable and we incremented it every time the user clicked on the button. And we embedded the counter in this message string variable, and we placed the string on the button text. And we were hoping that each time we clicked on the button, the counter would increment and the button would redisplay clicked and the correct number of times. But what we found was that although it fulfilled the first two criteria, it was data associated with the component and affected the appearance of the component. Unfortunately, when the data changed, React had absolutely no idea that this button needed to be redisplayed. So in this lesson, we're going to look at how React provides us with a really elegant solution to this problem. And the essence of the solution is that rather than us maintaining the state data in a variable, React will do that instead. It will have its own internal state data that it looks after on our behalf. And it provides us with access to that data via a function called useState. So we'll just call it here and I'll import it at the top of the screen. I import it from the React library. It's just the regular React npm library. We call useState and it will return us an array with two elements. So we'll just put that in. And the first element of the array will now contain the data in the state variable. So it passes us the value of the state variable into the first element of the array. So we can then say, well, let's just move this counter down here. And I'll say the counter is equal to array element 0. And we're getting pretty close to a solution here. One thing we need to do is tell React what value to initialize the state variable with. And so we'll just put a 0 in here. And now every time this button is rendered, the function will be called. We'll call useState. It will pass us an array. The first element of the array will be the value of the counter, and we'll assign that to our counter variable, and then the rest of the code will remain exactly the same. And this should work. It should display the counter no problem. We still haven't set about updating it, but we'll attend to that in a minute. But just for the moment, let's just see what we've got so far. Or look at this program running in the browser. And you see it says clicked 0 times. In other words, the counter is being initialized to 0 correctly. But if I click on it, nothing's happening. The counter's being updated, but this is just a local variable now to this function, and when the function exits, the counter variable actually is destroyed. So that's going nowhere. But fortunately, the array that was passed to us by React contains two elements, and the other is a function we can use to update the state. So I can say, create another line here, let set counter equals array element 1. And so I'm going to grab the second element of the array and I'm going to assign that to this variable here. So set counter is now a variable which contains a function, and we can call that function and update the value of the counter. So just as a demonstration of that working, I'll say set counter 7. And let's pop this up. And when I click on the button, you can see it now says click 7 times. So let's just talk about what actually happened there. The first time we rendered the button, this function was called. React saw this call to useState, initializing the variable to 0, so it set up a variable. It then returned an array with two elements in it. The first element was the counter, which was 0, and the second element was the setCounter function. We then displayed everything and we went to sleep. And when we clicked on the button, the onClick handler function was called. It called the setCounter function, which told React, hey, I want you to update the internal state to 7. So React went, yep, that's great. It updated its internal value to 7. And then because it now understands that this is internal state, it told our button to re-render again. So it called this function, and we went through the whole thing a second time. But this time, when we called useState, we got the new value of the variable. We got the value 7 in the first element of the array. And so counter contained 7. And we printed 7 out on the button. And if I continued to click the button every time, I would just be hitting setCounter 7 and not a lot would happen. What we really want is for the counter to go up and up and up. So there's actually a very neat solution to this, where we can not only pass a new value to setCounter, we can alternatively pass what's called a transformation function. So rather than saying to React, I want you to set the value to 7, we can say, here's a function, and if you pass the current value to the function, it will tell you what the new value is. So we'll write that transformation function. We'll say function, transform data. It's going to take an input, and it will return whatever the input is, plus 1. And instead of passing 7 to React, we're going to pass that function. We're going to pass transform data. And amazingly, now what's going to happen is when we click on the button, we're going to call React. We're going to say, hey React, please run this transformation function on the internal variable. It will take whatever value the internal state is, the internal counter. It will call this function with that value. It'll see the value plus 1 returned, and it'll say, oh, I see, that's the new value of the state. It'll update the state data, and it will call our center button a second time and render it. So this should all work now. Click 0 times 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have a nice working solution here. I would just like to tidy this up a bit. This is rather clunky JavaScript here, and we can tidy it up. To do that, I'm just going to refer you back to our lesson on JavaScript arrays. Let me just show you some code we looked at there. So I've just dragged that code in, and we can see we created an array here called numbers1, and it contained 5 elements, and we said there 10, 20, and so forth. And then a little later on, this line of code, and what this did was it created 3 brand new variables, first, second, and third, and they were assigned to the first, second, and third elements of the numbers1 array, and this was known as array destructuring. And we can use exactly the same thing in our program here. So we can say, rather than this array, we can say that counter and setCounter are created and initialized using array destructuring. And this now looks like a sort of proper React program, except instead of transform data being this declared function up here, we would typically implement this as an arrow function. We would say input goes to input plus 1, like that. So we can get rid of this function as well. And now we really are in business. If we pop this up, we can still see it's still working, and we have this lovely, elegant syntax. So I'd encourage you to just spend a little bit of time going over this again. If you are struggling with it, help is at hand. There is this wonderful website, react.dev. And if you visit the Learn section, these 4 sections down here are a complete React tutorial, and they're absolutely fantastic. I'd recommend, if you have the time, to work your way through the whole lot. But if you just want to know more about the useState, the first item in this section, you scroll down to step 3, you'll see it describes a useState in some detail if you'd like more information. So with that, I'll close this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll address one more really important aspect of React, which is known as use effect. So I'll see you there.